You're probably scrolling through a sea of specs and wondering whether any of these high-end workstations actually translate into a smoother day at the desk, or if you'll just be paying a premium for a machine that sits idle most of the time. It's an easy trap. You spend a few minutes on a product page, see a glossy photo, and end up with something that doesn't line up with the software you run or the space you have. I get that hesitation, especially when you're looking at a price tag that could cover a whole suite of mid-range laptops. If you're trying to decide whether the HP Z2 G1i is the right fit for your workflow, keep listening. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, the Z2 G1i is marketed as a creator's workstation, and the hardware backs that claim. Under the hood you'll find an Intel Core Ultra 9 285 processor, which is essentially a 32-core beast built on the latest architecture. Pair that with 32 GB of DDR5 memory and a 1 TB NVMe SSD, and you have a platform that can keep up with heavy multitasking, large CAD assemblies, or 4K video timelines without the kind of stutter you'd expect from a consumer-grade PC. The addition of an NVIDIA GPU with 8 GB of VRAM, based on the professional-grade line, gives you the kind of CUDA core count that rendering farms love. In practice, that means you can open a complex Blender scene, hit render, and watch the progress bar move at a pace that feels linear, not exponential. Now, who actually benefits from that kind of power? If you're an architectural visualizer, a VFX artist, or an engineer who runs simulations that eat up CPU cycles, this machine is designed for you. The AI-powered features baked into the chipset also help with tasks like real-time upscaling in video editing suites, which can shave minutes off your render times. For a freelance motion designer who needs to juggle After Effects, Premiere Pro, and a handful of 3D plugins at once, the Z2's memory bandwidth and GPU acceleration become tangible productivity gains. Even for a small design studio that shares a single workstation across a few desks, the ability to handle multiple high-resolution monitors without lag is a real win. On the flip side, if your daily grind consists of email, spreadsheet work, or light Photoshop edits, you're likely overpaying. The Core Ultra 9's 32 cores are overkill for word processing, and the professional GPU's driver stack can be a little finicky if you never tap into its capabilities. In that scenario, a mid-range desktop or even a high-end laptop would give you similar responsiveness for a fraction of the cost. The Z2 also comes in a tower form factor that's a bit larger than the typical consumer case. If you're cramped in a home office with limited desk space, the footprint could become a nuisance, especially when you factor in the need for proper airflow. Speaking of airflow, the Z2's cooling solution is engineered for sustained workloads. The fans spin up noticeably when you launch a rendering job, but they stay relatively quiet for everyday tasks. In real-world testing, I ran a 30-minute stress test with a full-scene render in Cinema 4D and the case temperature settled in the low 70 SF, which is comfortable for a machine that's been pushing its CPU and GPU hard. The downside here is that the case design limits easy upgrades. The tower has a proprietary layout, so swapping out the SSD for a larger drive or adding another GPU isn't as straightforward as you'd find in a DIA-friendly chassis. If you anticipate needing to future-proof the rig beyond the current specs, you'll have to plan ahead or accept that the next upgrade might mean a new box. Another practical consideration is the software side. The workstation ships with Windows 11 Pro, which is fine for most professional environments, but the licensing cost is baked into the price. For a company that already has volume licensing, that's an extra expense you might want to factor in. On the plus side, HP's driver support for the NVIDIA Professional GPU is solid. They provide certified drivers for the major creative suites, which reduces the headache of chasing compatibility updates. In my own workflow, I didn't encounter any driver conflicts when moving between Autodesk Revit and DaVinci Resolve, something that can be a silent timesuck on less tested rigs. One area where the Z2 shines is connectivity. The inclusion of an Intel W880 chipset gives you multiple Thunderbolt 4 ports, a 10 gigabits Ethernet port, and a full complement of USB-C and USB-A connectors. For anyone who relies on fast network transfers, say, moving large project files between a local NAS and the workstation. Those 10 gigabits Ethernet speeds cut down transfer times dramatically. I ran a copy of a 200 gigabytes video archive from a NAS to the internal SSD and it finished in just under 8 minutes, which is a noticeable improvement over standard gigabit Ethernet. The downside is that you'll need adapters for older peripherals that only have legacy connectors, but that's a minor inconvenience compared to the speed gains. Looking at the overall reception, the Z2